Hi, everybody. This is Lily Kazemi with DAOFitlive, and today is March 25th, 2022, and we are covering in our third DAOFit Live, Springing into Fitness for Busy Professionals. First of all, if you are joining live, I really want to thank you so much for being here. And also thanks for bearing with us as we continue to work out the kinks with our technical difficulties. I think that by the fifth or sixth DAOFit Live, we'll be doing much better. But as a famous song, I think from the 90s or the 2000s said, it does take some time in the middle. And that's very similar with fitness. You got to stick out the middle to get to the end and to really get what you're after. So that's what I'm here for, to help you with today. We are already in the first week of spring, if you would believe it. We're approaching summer, which means vacations, weddings. I can't tell you how many wedding invitations I've received in the past couple of months. And now people are starting to do more in-person social events. Just in the past couple of weeks, as I've been going to the gym, I've been noticing a lot more people. So we all want to look and feel our best. And so that is what this mini series of live webinars is going to cover. And we'll focus on discrete topics every time. So today I'm going to focus on 3 discrete topics. One is food tracking. I'll explain what I mean by that and the importance of it and how you can get started on that today and how it will really help you along. And then we're going to talk about 2 important items that I classify as, quote, saboteurs in my book and my blog. One of them is Condiment CalorieBombs, and the other one is portion sizes. And I'm actually going to have some live demos on here today, so it'll be entertaining for you. But with that being said, I am cognizant of the little time we have, so I am ready to jump into the first topic. Are you? Okay, let's get started. Okay, food tracking. What do I mean by that? Well, let me give you some context first. So there was a recent study, and there's been a number of studies on this, but on average, people underestimate the amount of calories they consume per day by 30%. So let's do a little math. And I'm a lawyer, I'm not a math person, so this is very simple math. So based on a 2,000 calorie a day estimate, which is what the Food and Drug Administration recommends, if someone were to underestimate their calorie intake by 30%, that would mean that they're actually consuming 2,600 calories a day. And that may not seem like a big deal, but when you add that up and multiply that excess 600 by 365 days, a year, and then you divide that by 3,500, which is the number of excess calories that you have to intake to gain a pound, that is 60 additional pounds. So an awareness of what you're eating and drinking incredibly matters. Just think of it in an analogy, for example, in a business context. You know, a client retains you for a project. You're not going to just let the team work without, pulling the budget, making sure you're within the forecasted fees. Or some of you may have kids that are teenagers or in college, and they'll go out there and willy-nilly use the credit card, and then you get this huge bill, because all of these microtransactions in and of themselves may not seem like that much, but they also just add up to be a lot. So that is why at least an awareness of what you are eating or drinking, and then being able to make adjustments based on that data is really important, because ultimately the equation is simple. It's all about Chico. It's calories in and calories out. And if you consume more calories than you expend, you will gain weight. And the opposite is true. If you're on a quest to lose weight, you need to consume less calories than you expend. And what happens often is you notice that exercise is not on today's agenda. I promise you we will cover it. But a lot of times people put the cart before the horse and jump right into throwing themselves into exercise and how many steps can I get a day. And that is very important. But as I explain in my blog and my book, scientifically speaking, that only affects for about 5 to 10% of your total daily calorie burn. Most of the calories you burn a day are based on factors that you can do nothing about. It's based mostly on your basal metabolic rate, which is the calories I'm burning by just sitting and moving my mouth and talking to you, and also the thermic effect of food. The calories that you actually expend chewing, digesting food are more than the calories that you burn through exercise. So that is why focusing on diet and a nutrition strategy is incredibly important. So let me explain the process of food tracking. So luckily with technology today, it's very easy. I've been passionate about fitness for a long time. I've also been on the planet for quite some time. So when I was first doing this, when I was in college, there was no such thing as apps. I actually used a handwritten journal, and then there were books that would tell you basically an item in food and how many calories that would be. And then I would go, and add it up in the book. You don't have to do that anymore. There are apps you can use. So the one that I would recommend is MyFitnessPal. And I will preface everything else I'm saying today by telling you that nobody, I'm not being paid for any recommendations. This is all my personal preferences. So I have used several different varieties of food tracking apps, and this I find is the easiest. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here I have the app open, and you can see, maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. Maybe you can see that text from my husband, but basically it enables you to add foods and log your food intake to be able to tally up how many calories you're consuming a day. You just add the food under breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it actually can look up a wide variety of different foods from chain restaurants. You can save meals. You can actually just use your phone and scan the meals. It's incredibly easy. And so at this point, what I would recommend is not even setting goals. The app enables you to do that, enables you to set a goal weight and calorie and macronutrient goals. But before you can decide how to address what you need to get to your goals, you need a base case. So from now until we have our next live webinar, 2 weeks, why don't we do this? Download MyFitnessPal or an app of your choice. If you happen to prefer something else, that is great. There's also apps called Lose It. There's another one called 8. If those are more your cup of tea, great. And then just track what you're eating. Don't make any changes to your diet. Just start tracking what you're eating, and then you'll be data gathering to see what changes you might be able to make to better further your goals, whether that would be weight loss or getting stronger, more muscular, more toned. Everybody is in a different place in their journey. But no matter where you are, even if you're just in maintenance mode, you definitely want to have that awareness, because ultimately you have to measure it to manage it. So with that, we're going to move on to the next topic. And I definitely go into a lot more detail about using the app and about counting calories and macros on the blog. After this webcast is over, I'm going to add all the links. And then in next week's newsletter, I'll do a blog post recapping what we talked about here today with the replay and insert all the information that you need to know. So the second topic today that we are going to cover is Condiment CalorieBombs. And I know this name sounds dramatic, but it just illustrates the sneakiness of things. And when you do start tracking your food, condiments are going to be a very important part of that, because those are the things that can really get you. So think of it this way. Like, I would analogize it again to a business context because we're business professionals. Think of it like a loan. The principal usually isn't what gets people into debt. It's the interest, right? And then the interest on the interest and the late fees. So those are sort of like what condiments are like. So condiments basically include foods that you would cook with. For example, oils. And so picture yourself cooking, right? We put a pan on the stove. We need something so that the food doesn't stick to the pan to add flavor for the food. If you just take a bottle of olive oil or, avocado oil, which is safer for higher heat, and just turn it upside down and just, go about your day, you could be pouring hundreds of calories onto your meal, even if it is as simple and healthy as something like, a chicken vegetable stir fry. And another very clever loophole that food manufacturers have figured out is that, for example, some of you may be fans of olive oil sprays or coconut oil sprays. You can buy this Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. If you look at the back of it, it'll say that there are 0 calories. So basically, the Food and Drug Administration has a rule that if a food is less than 5 calories per serving, then the manufacturer is allowed to put on the label that it is 0 calories. But there's a big but. Look at the label, and we're actually going to cover this in the next one. We're going to do this deep dive into labels because this is super important. Look at the back of the label, and it says serving size 1/3 of a second of a spray. I mean, can you even like conceive of what 1/3 of a second is? So that would basically be like that. That's really all you could spray. But most of us don't do that. We go I am now adding sound effects, I suppose. So that those calories are going to count. And if you don't count them, you're oblivious to actually how much you are taking in. So let me give you some other examples. So another type of popular condiment, and some of these condiments, they are, either standalone, maybe less healthy, like ketchup, or some of them are standalone healthy. Like you'll read a magazine and it'll say, this is a great, superfood. It's a great weight loss food. Another common example of that is nut butters. And I love nut butters, and so does my dog. But, often we're going to put this on a piece of toast. Maybe we're going to put it, with our granola, or maybe we'll eat it right out of the jar. Who knows? I'm not going to judge. But on the back, the serving size is 2 tablespoons, which are 210 calories. So that means 1 tablespoon is 105 calories. Guess how much a tablespoon is? So this is a tablespoon measurement, and I'm taking that into my nut butter. And, this is about how much you can have. It's not very much. I mean, it's definitely less than a lot of people would put on if you were making, for example, a full sandwich. So you have to take that into account, and the amount of extra fat. And by the way, this tablespoon is also the serving size of ketchup. Ketchup is another popular condiment that's actually a huge calorie bomb, because what do we, normally eat ketchup with? French fries? Or even if we're eating it with a more innocuous type of food, usually we dip in the ketchup. So there's going to be tablespoons upon tablespoons of ketchup consumed. But the news is not all bad, because the key to be successful here is not to eat food without taste, because we want our food to taste good. We want to eat for pleasure. But just being able to make these type of substitutions for popular condiments. So I think with a nut butter, it's more just of an awareness. Like you definitely want to make sure that you're not just taking some spoon and just, or a knife and just getting a big hunk out. Like you want to be aware, okay, well, if I'm having 2 tablespoons, like this is going to be my meal. This is how many calories that I'm eating for this meal. But with ketchup, the good news is about modern society today is that there's so much variety of product on the market. So when I was doing research about condiments, I came across the Prego story. This is actually a very incredible story. So you think back to like the 50s and 60s, there was hardly any variety in food. You usually could only find one type of product. So at the time, ragu dominated the spaghetti sauce market. And Prego came on the scene, wanted to have market share, but everybody knew ragu spaghetti sauce and nobody was paying Prego any attention. But then, the CEO of Prego started talking to his friends and family, and they said, you know what? Like, we really wish that there was an option for chunky spaghetti sauce. And that's what Prego did. They came out with their chunky spaghetti sauce. They went gangbusters. But the point of my story, of the Prego story, is before there used to be a choice of chunky and not chunky. Now there's so many different varieties of ketchup, including those with no added sugar, and including those actually like that don't have any sugar at all. So one example of a ketchup that I like to have, and I don't know, some people might think I'm gross, but I love ketchup on my eggs. So that's why I have the ketchup. But for example, when you go to most novelty stores, definitely at Whole Foods, there's the Primal Kitchen brand. And they're a paleo friendly brand. And I don't subscribe to a particular diet, but I definitely will buy, products based on, a more healthy profile for sugar and other types of additives. So for this, 1 tablespoon of this ketchup is 10 calories. And unlike ketchup, it does not contain any added sugar, and it only contains 1 gram of sugar total. The ingredients, include tomato concentrate and vinegar and onion powder. So it's super easy to make these substitutions. And even for example, oftentimes we'll go to a party, right? Now we're going to parties or conferences or something like this. And, for the events, you'll see a spread on a table, right? And maybe if you are being more health conscious, you'll think, okay, I'm going to go for the vegetables, right? For the carrots and the broccoli, and just fill my plate with vegetables. Great idea. But what is next to the vegetables? Dip, because I don't know about you, but I can't eat naked raw vegetables. Just can't do it. I have to have some sauce. But instead of the condiment calorie bomb of the dip, which PS, you don't even know, because most of the time they're not going to put it in a bowl with the label. It's just going to be like a ranch sort of dip. But just to give you a sense, on average, 2 tablespoons of ranch dressing, when I just showed you what a tablespoon was, has 140 calories. So when you dip a broccoli, like that's basically what you're getting, like for each piece of broccoli you have. But you have great options if you educate yourself on what condiments are typically less calories and are actually healthy for you. So for example, usually besides the veggies, there's going to be a chips and salsa. So dip your veggies in the salsa instead. Salsa makes a great dip. Hummus is also a great option. And there's, for example, with soy sauce, like that's another popular condiment, but it's got a lot of sodium. A lot of them also have sugar, but there's a great substitute called tamari sauce, which is actually wheat-free, has a lot less sodium, and makes proteins and veggies taste really good. So On my blog, I go into a lot of detail about condiments and substitutes you can make. The last important one that I'll talk about before we move on, because I did mention salad dressings, it is salad dressing, because that is the ultimate saboteur. So when you go in a restaurant, right, go on a business lunch or reconnecting with old friends, or you're ordering in for the night, salad sounds pretty healthy. Like that's kind of what the health-minded people go for. But what can ultimately just totally ruin any effort to be healthy and make your salad as calorie dense as a burger and fries is the salad dressing. Because first of all, they usually want to make it very tasty. That means there's usually, a lot of oil, a lot of added sugars, and they usually pour a very generous amount and mix it in the salad. So I have several suggestions for that on the blog. One is if you're eating at home, instead of the bottled balsamic vinaigrette dressings, make your own dressings. I have a lot of great recipes, but there's also a lot of, pre-bottled dressings on the market, again, from brands like the ones I showed you that have a lot less calories. So just look at how many calories there are per tablespoon and basically be mindful of that when you are dressing your salad. And if you are at a restaurant, ask for the dressing on the side, or just ask for oil and vinegar on the side, because that's a lot easier to manage. Vinegar is a great condiment because even balsamic vinegar on its own doesn't have that many calories. It's when they make it a vinaigrette that it becomes calorie dense. And waiters will usually have no problem just bringing you oil and vinegar on the side. So that's a great option for when you're in a restaurant, or if you are getting a salad to go. You can also just get the salad without dressing, and then what I call BYOD, bring your own dressing and dress your own salad with a tasty dressing. So I will include those links in the YouTube post and also in the blog post that I'll do next week to the previous post that I've done on condiments. I could talk about condiments all day, but we only have 8 minutes, unfortunately. So we're going to move on to saboteur number 2. A change that you can make today that is so important: portion sizes. Again, not to do a big history lesson, but decades ago, portion sizes were so much smaller. If you read articles on this, like a serving of, for example, a hamburger and fries used to be a lot smaller than what it is today. We are in a super size society. And I really think that this applies mostly to Western, to American societies, because I know when I go to Europe for vacation, for example, and I'll order a cup of coffee, they'll bring it in this little, it's like a teacup. And I'm like, no, I need a coffee the size of my head. I'm American. But yeah, everything there, I mean, people eat in a lot small portions, but we tend to eat larger portions. And I mean, restaurants have really poisoned the well. I mean, they give us these huge portions, and then it is actually also shown in many studies that the bigger the plate, the more that you actually end up eating. So you've got these big portions on these big plates, and you end up eating more. And so we're conditioned to eat more. But a way to manage this is to be more aware of portion sizes. So some more demonstrations and examples. Okay. So oatmeal, steel cut oats, is usually a pretty healthy breakfast. And if you look at the back of the label, you'll see 1/4 of a cup of dry steel cut oats without anything else is 150 calories. Okay, great. So do you want to actually know how much that is? This is 1/4 of a cup. And this is about how much oatmeal that is. It's, when you add water, it'll get a little bit more, but people typically, they eat more like a 1/2 cup. And that is before you add the toppings and such. But this size is also the size for 1/4 of a cup of serving of nuts And that's another huge one because nuts are healthy. Nuts are great for you. Almonds, cashews, walnuts, all full of vitamin E and antioxidants and protein. But the serving size of nuts is also 1/4 of a cup. It's 170 calories and about 16 grams of fat. And so, nuts are an easy thing to kind of just, be snacking on by the handful. But in truth, 1/4 of a cup is only about a little handful of nuts. So you really got to be aware of these portion sizes. And I actually would suggest making sure that you have measuring cups on hand. A lot of times these are sold in a set of 1/4, 1/3, 1/2, and 1 full cup. It doesn't take any extra time, but it really just helps you have the awareness of what an actual serving size is. So let me give another example, and this is even better. Okay, so granola. So this is some granola, another healthy food, right? And I love this brand. It's Purely Elizabeth. I don't know if any of you know that brand, but it's very addictive. But yeah, this is the amount of granola 1/3 of a cup yields. And for that, you're clocking in at 170 to 180 calories and about 16 grams of fat, because this is the grain-free version. So this is, purportedly healthier than the version that has with grains. But, I could finish this in less than 2 bites for sure. So what do? What I tend to do is I'll have the serving size, but I'll also mix it with a dry bran cereal that's like 100 calories per cup. So I actually feel the fullness of having cereal, or you can just put it on top of your yogurt. And my last example and demonstration today has to do with alcohol, because we're going to be at more events. There's going to be alcohol at these venues. So, for example, this is 5 ounces of rosé. So this is actually, it's not real rosé. It's this brand. It's a non-caloric cranberry Cosmo brand. So I'm just using that as an example, but it looks a lot like rosé. So pretend it's rosé. So this is a serving size, though. This is 5 ounces of rosé, and that yields about 100 calories. So this is usually how they do serve it at bars and restaurants, but you probably will have 2-3 glasses, right? So that's about 200-300 calories in addition to what else you're eating and drinking. And when you pour it for yourself, I suspect most people fill it higher than that. So portion sizes are very also important for what you drink, including for alcoholic beverages, but also including for coffees, for example. So when you're tracking your food, like that includes the lattes that you get at Starbucks. So pay attention to, whether you're getting a tall size or a grande or a venti, because it can make a very big difference based on what size you get. And you may be asking, well, how can I determine the right size, the right amount of food? Measuring cups are one way. Some people use food scales to determine weight because, for example, for proteins, a serving size is 3 to 4 ounces. And people actually eat a lot more than that. If you actually weigh your protein, you'll see that 3 to 4 ounces is a lot less than you think it is. But I also have a post about this. Another great way to benchmark portion sizes is practical object visualization. So let me show you really quick what I'm talking about because we have a minute left. So you see this mouse? That's about the serving size of protein you should be having for chicken and fish. Okay. And then do you see this lipstick? This is about the size for a portion size of cheese. And same with this hair barrette. This is about the serving size for a fat, like if you're having avocado, that is a serving size. So there's also the hand method where you look at inside your hand for the protein, your thumb for the fat, 2 fists full for vegetable size servings. Again, my post goes all into that. We don't have time to go into it too much detail because we're about out of time, but try these 3 habits for the next 2 weeks. They're going to take very little of your extra time. You don't even have to change your diet. All you have to do is start incorporating these habits and gathering some information about yourself and your nutrition. And when we meet back in 2 weeks, we're going to see what we do with this information and some more habits that we can start to really get smart about our nutrition and form a great foundation for fitness. With that, friends, it's 2:30. We're out of time. I want to again thank you so much for coming. And it's just been a pleasure. And if you're watching the replay, I do hope you come back for our next live. I will be sending out the info about that in the next newsletter. In the meantime, everyone have a great Friday.